All us girls.
Call the meeting to order.
Whoops.
Act on the agenda. Anybody got anything to add?
Chris, can we add under highways, to just talk about the RFP for the 2 bridges? I'm not sure if you've kind of gone over that because that grant became available all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So if you wanna go over the details with the board and then talk about maybe what we want the RFP to look like when it goes out. Thanks.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Act on the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any comment? Is there a comment, Jason? Or,
No,
Bridge.
just for the sand bids and
I figured.
the bridges sounded interesting.
So, new business, reclassification of Old Parmalee Road. As far as I can see, what we need to do tonight is just say we're gonna do it, right? And
Yeah, a
schedule.
motion and a vote to reclassify. You don't even have to decide right now until you've heard from abutting landowners what their thoughts are. So if you approve reclassifying it, then what you'll do is set a day and time for a site visit and then a public hearing, which would be basically inviting the abutting landowners to weigh in on what they think. Since it's light out later now, I don't know if you wanna try to meet just before the 6:30 meeting, have the site visit, and then come here and have the meeting after that and make a decision about what you wanna do at that time. Or have the site visit at a different time, I'm not sure.
I mean, the site visit, then the meeting, because that meeting can
Yeah.
serve as the public hearing right after the site
Yeah.
visit.
Well, because it's a little more than we have to do it no less than 30 days, the public hearing part. And since that's our next meeting, the first meeting in June is a little more than 30 days away. I was just trying to take that opportunity to do it at that meeting since you'd already be together that day. So if you vote to reclassify the road today, then I will get out the abutting landowner letters and get it warned.
Well, I would make a motion to reclassify the road.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have it.
And then, do we need to make any other beyond that will?
Not today,
The June-
everything else, yep,
Yeah,
you'll make
okay.
any decisions,
Okay.
and I don't know if everybody
just put it on the
saw the
agenda.
information in the email, so the reason that the reclassification is being discussed, it's actually literally a 7/10 of a mile stretch that has not been maintained for many, many years as far as we know, and the state actually still has it classified as a class 3 road. And so they said, if you don't intend to maintain it as a class 3 road, then you need to declassify it. So it's at their insistence that that process has started.
It's actually 7/100 of a mile, isn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, yes.
Right, and it's.
You can see from one end to the other right on
Right,
Route
right.
11.
Right.
And I
And,
guess Charlie
To
said the
maintain
drop
it.
off now, because Gates Road is built up so
Yep.
much, the drop off down in there is pretty
Right.
high.
Yeah, so we got that taken care of. Highways and garage. Speed studies.
We're definitely committed to redoing the one up by Wanda Eubanks, I think, right?
I'm not sure.
It failed last year.
Yeah.
And then I was just wondering if it's something, the state does it,
The Regional Planning Commission.
but we don't have to pay for it.
No.
So like, should we, just to double check ourselves about, our automatic things, should we do one in the middle of town, or should we just let sleeping dogs lie?
Well, that speed study was because of the petition, correct? That petition
Yeah,
was
I
to
think
lower
we
the
should
speed
redo
limit.
that one.
And then, unfortunately, it seemed like when that failed, they did the manual radar, and they did it right next to Horseshoe Acres, which would be a spot where people would relatively go slower, I would think.
Yeah.
And it would have been better to, I think, been up on the other end, past North Hill, but
Yeah, I would like to see
I-
that done again.
yeah, I thought the plan was to redo it because it failed. I forget what he said why, but one of the sensors didn't
yeah.
Yeah.
work or something.
And then it wasn't going to, they wouldn't have time to redo it when the bridge was being worked on.
And then it
prior to
snowed.
that.
And then
And then it snowed and, yeah.
So the only real question is, do we not really need to do one in town? Is your feeling in town that people are,
It really depends, honestly. You know, people that have been caught probably have slowed down, and some people just go the speed limit, and then, you know, there are delivery trucks that fly through here. So, I mean, this is already 30, so there's no need to do a speed study because
Oh, okay.
there's no action the board can take unless you plan
Right.
to lower it more than below
oh, okay,
below
wait, yeah,
30.
okay.
The only other question had been, so from the end of the 30 to the Chestertown line, there's no speed limit, which means technically it's 50, and then at the Chestertown line, it's 40 out to Route 11, and we had been approached by the town of Chester as well as the Regional Planning Commission at one point to just ask the board to think about, do you wanna just make that section 40 so it's consistent all the way through, do you not want to? Chester had a speed study done in that area, quite a long time ago, and they shared that with us when that discussion came up 2 or 3 years
It
ago.
was right off the end of Potash Road,
That's right,
the counter. Wasn't it somebody doing 105 miles an hour or something?
yep.
That's
So I can reach out to them and
yeah.
talk about where and when they wanna do that, and so I guess the question is, to Susan's point, did you want another one down here between the 30 and the Chestertown line? I don't know where they'd set it up, at Lamson's probably, Lamson's early-ish, I'm not sure.
If you want one down there.
Well, I withdraw my suggestion if there's nothing we can do. In the back of my head is if we don't really have active sheriff, speeding, any, control anymore, it's just kind of interesting to see what actually is going on, but it's not necessary probably.
I mean, I can ask Otis about it, but he might say they don't wanna spend the labor if there's not really any
Yeah.
actionable information.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you want to tell all this up and have him at least read it on up there.
Okay.
Okay, open to winter sand bids next on the agenda.
A couple came by email, so they're sort of open, if you will. There's one from River Bend, is that the name of the company? And then here's one from Hunter Excavating, and then here's one that came in the mail from George Tucker.
And are we making a decision on this tonight, or?
Yes.
Yeah. So Hunter Excavating is 2150 delivered and 14 per ton. Cold River Road and Clarendon. George Tucker is $13 a yard picked up there.
So do you know the difference between the yard and the ton? I mean, how
No.
many tons are in a,
I don't.
I'd like to ask Charlie that. I mean, I could get a hold of somebody that knows. $13 a yard.
But the 2150 is per yard when it's delivered, but the other
The other is per ton,
per ton.
so I'm kinda curious as to.
River Bend is $12 picked up in Rockingham. $18 delivered.
Charlie said he and Daryl did go look at, Riverbend sand because they weren't familiar with it, and, he said, he would be happy with it, they might have to add a little bit of stone from shaves, possibly.
And just refresh me, why have we not reached out to Shaves?
Shaves is not putting in a bid.
They're
Charlie
not
reached
putting-
out to him.
He did,
Yep.
okay.
He said that they would have been in the vicinity of $20 a yard, somewhere in that. Correct. That's
But
what
they
he
just
said.
aren't doing one, okay. I'm just curious because they're so close.
I would say that Tucker's is off the table with the trouble they had with it last year. In my opinion, that's where I feel about that because they fought with that sand and weren't happy with it.
14 per ton.
Anything to do with the conversion is, Jason?
Well, depends on how much it's raining.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Moisture content.
Yeah. I'm not sure why he would give both.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He's got scales up in his pit, but you would just think he would put it out there one way or the other. I don't know, is he saying that's equivalent to 14 per ton maybe? I don't know.
Is our plan to pick it up? Or is our
I
plan,
believe it is, yeah.
pardon me?
I believe so.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just, the computer says, one place, it says, they multiply tons by 0.714. So for example, 1 ton of gravel is 0.174 yards. I don't know if that helps.
Gravel's different than sand.
Yeah, this one's
That's
mulch,
right.
so that's
They're
out.
totally different.
That's a lot different.
I could reach out to somebody and ask them. But
But if we
again,
were to even
Jason's
route
point.
A ton
the
of gravel with average size pebbles is about 0.705 cubic yards, or 19 cubic feet. Assuming it's been screened for debris.
But this is gravel versus sand, which is a whole
Oh,
different
right,
weight.
right,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's a different
So-
weight. I wish I knew this off the.
that's $6 a
Does Charlie
yard
know?
delivered. Even if you got that off of that 2150, you're not even coming close to $12 a
No.
yard. I'm not saying that they're. I understand that's delivered from Clarendon and one's from Rockingham, but
Yeah, but
yeah.
to us, it doesn't matter.
Yep. No, absolutely. Because if that was picked up in Clarendon, the cost per yard would be a lot more.
Hunters?
If we were to send them over
But
truckload
is it in
after.
Clarendon?
Yeah, it's a
not?
Clarendon pit.
Oh, is that what you
Correct,
said?
yeah.
It's on the back road. If you turn off at the hill,
At the whistle stop, right?
At the
You
whistle
turn at the
stop.
whistle stop and it's out
it's out
there.
there.
So I mean,
I was
that's,
thinking it might be the Londonderry, but I know he doesn't
Yeah.
have a pit there, but I was just wondering if they,
No, they bring stuff back and screen it. And
How about Rockingham?
If that's where.
Whereabouts is that?
Is it right next to 103? Is that
Next
where?
is it. I think it's a Savage's old pit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I've seen the
Okay.
sign there. Now I've seen. Now I know. Yep. So it's right on the left, right there by the old police barracks.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's what from here, 10. Oh, that's not even 10 miles, is it?
No,
No.
89 miles.
And it's not a bad road. Nothing like what they were hauling from Ludlow last year.
No,
And who is it again?
It's Riverbend.
never mind.
Adams, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
Bucky
Bucky
Adams.
Adams.
Yeah.
And what did we end up last year with yardage? I forget if we ended up with. Was it 2,500 or what did they get?
It was about 2,500.
I thought so.
Charlie said just to be safe.
Make sure you get
have it bid at
3,000.
I think it was just under 2,500 that we got in. And put all that rock in it.
And Charlie did look at the Riverbend.
Yeah.
Charlie and Daryl.
Yeah.
Right.
He said there was quite a bit of sharp stone in it already, so I didn't think they'd have to add any, or not much. Not like they had to add with Tucker's.
Right. And did they commit to an amount or did they, what's whatever we want?
It's
It's 3,000 yards.
Up to, I'm sorry,
3,000 yards.
3,000.
I think it says there's more available if we need it.
More, it's,
Yeah,
He did write that on that one, I think.
yeah, you did. That's the thing with Tuckers, if you want more,
You can't
you
get it.
can't get it in the winter.
right. Well, and if we had trouble with Tuckers and they, it
Yeah.
was, you know, we don't wanna do that again. So then it's between,
So, for hunters, let's just with the delivered price, it's $10,000 difference from Riverbend to Hunter, just shy 9,500. Sorry, for 3,000 yards delivered. Because that's how I can compare the two prices because of the tonnage. And if it was picked up at Riverbend, it'd be 36,000 for 3,000 yards, and the budget's for 40,000 for sand. I understand that. Like last year, you can't break down our trucking costs into that without
and how is our truck running?
everybody.
Fine so
Are we,
far.
we're gonna be okay with trucking that?
Which I mean, for that price difference, it would make sense for them to truck it. Because that's a 18.
6 months a yard.
I make a motion that we accept the Riverbend sand proposal.
Second
All those in favor? Aye.
it.
Aye.
Favor, aye. And road commissioner's report is next. They did have a little bit of trouble with the truck. They put the fifth clutch in the PTO a couple weeks ago. Tried a different brand this time. And the graders in parts all the way up the hallway, I guess,
Really?
over to United. But they say it's gonna be back by the 17th.
By the 17th of,
This month.
okay,
That was
Right.
worst case scenario according
That's
to
right, yeah.
United.
okay.
And Charlie decided not to subcon even
I was
because of
wondering
all
about
the rain
that.
coming and the price, right? It was
Yeah.
a little expensive, and I've seen most towns aren't even doing a lot of grading because of all the rain so far. So it's
I've had a few people contact me going, what's going on with the roads in Andover? Through the grapevine because of the work we do. It's, you know, people that work. you
Which
know,
that's-
big trucks and such.
it's only 9 more days
Yeah.
to the 17th. So
So they said they're on schedule with that.
There's no way they can't just replace the transmission because they can't get one. So
he said
that's
they
off the table.
he said they found metal in the fluid and. So.
And they're still working on the radio problem. They tried the radios analog, which is just truck to truck, and it was a little bit better than the old ones, but there's no way for it to scan to pick up either or. Which means if somebody can't reach the other two guys, they can't radio them to tell them to switch over to the analog side.
Right,
But so they're working on trying to find a way to have it
Figure out.
scan.
right. And is this the same area that the rest of us would have cell coverage or not cell coverage? I'm just wondering because the alternative is, hey guys, I got to switch over to on our cell
Yeah, and
phones.
it's not dependable. But they're still working on that.
Yeah.
And they tried some different antennas too. That's about it for the Commissioner's report. Old business, it's a year-to-date budget update.
I think did you not want to do the RFD for bridges thing in the
Oh, that's right. We added
Oh,
the
that's right.
we added the bridges.
The bridges, sorry about that. Yeah, Charlie and I met with Megan from the state, and she said it's a $250,000 grant, right?
I believe so.
It was up for grabs if some other town didn't take their money this year. And so we got the grant.
Oh wow.
Oh, great.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And we were looking at tearing the deck off the campground bridge and the Boynton Hollow Bridge, and redoing the surface of the decks.
Yeah. Could any of that grant go towards the bridge that we were talking about over by, I don't know, by Tim and Stacy's house?
Oh, at Stacy
Yeah.
Hills, yeah.
At the
Oh, Howard Hill Road.
Howard Hill Road?
Yeah.
He was gonna.
Or is
We
it
have
gonna
to-
eat
that
that
was-
all up with that?
That was more paving.
Paving,
That's paving
yeah.
the road.
Okay.
No, that's not bridge
I'm just
work.
wondering
That's-
if any
he
of
was
that could
looking
be.
into getting several places, which after that meeting I was asked about both sides of the bridge on Middletown Road because that's very similar to
Mm-hmm.
the holes on Howard Hill.
Right.
But that's just paving. That's not
Yeah.
their
But this can't be
the
accessed for
contract
that as
or
well.
the bids that are gonna get sent out is even for painting the gussets on the bridge, right? Did I read that correctly?
Yeah.
If they're
On the Boynton Hollow Bridge.
Yeah.
And the girders.
Wow,
Well, that's great we got that
that's
grant.
amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The only thing, we don't know how much, if we haven't really got enough to do both bridges, or whether we start on one and see how far it goes. But
How long can we sit on the funds? Like, if we start on one bridge, see how it goes?
2 years, right?
Oh, that's good.
So just two construction seasons.
Okay.
So Megan asked, she gave a couple of different scenarios for putting out the request for proposals on that. She talked about putting it out as one big job. She talked about, do you wanna do just the cleaning and repairing as part, and then the painting as part, and those different scenarios. I talked to Charlie a little bit, and we wondered if we wanted to put out, you know, this bridge and this bridge, or, you know, if you're interested in both jobs, give us, you know, kind of a final price to see if there's any, if it's helpful to a contractor to be able to have both projects. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts were on how you want that to go, be put out. I mean, realistically, like Charlie said, we can either write it, you know, give us the amount for this piece and this piece, but he said anybody who might need to subcontract out is gonna bid it that way to us anyway, so we don't need to ask for it separately. They'll just roll it into their bid if they have to get another company to do a piece of their project.
I should just put them both out. As well as one.
Okay.
Although when we did the three that 1 year, Eamon bid a lower price
Because he got all three.
because he got all three and he had the low bid anyways, but I was trying something to put on that one.
And I didn't remember what she said, is this for starting fiscal year 23-24? So July
So.
1st, and that's why she dated the RFP for like June,
I think
which obviously by the time we get there, it's gonna be June by the time we get them out anyway, probably,
Right.
close to it. I'll double check with her about timelines.
it's an 80% match, right?
Yes,
20% match, I should say.
right, 20% match, right.
Charlie said when they stripped the bridge up here at the campground, he said they could just reach down and pick the cement out between the rebar with his hands. Just closed it back up.
Right.
Right on.
Well, it sounds like it came just in time,
Yeah,
the grant.
so one of them is clearly more urgent than the other, I guess. I don't really know anything about it, so.
The Boynton Hollow one is a bigger bridge.
Oh.
And there's more at risk there, really,
Oh, okay, yeah.
price wise. The bridge is actually as big almost as the High Bridge. Doesn't look it when you get down there, but it's only about 4 or 5 feet
Had some
shorter.
repair work on it a few years ago, I think.
Yeah. They painted the girders once. Both the campground bridge and that one, I think Daniels did it, and they put sand on it and then paved it. And the sand is just, you get a hole in the pavement and you just see the water coming right up. It's like a sponge.
Wow.
It wasn't the proper thing to do. We probably should have a motion on that, so
Sure.
move it to the RFP for the both bridges as one package.
A second.
I'll say, yeah.
All those in favor?
Right. I have another budget question. I was just thinking back over that extra request we got from Neighborhood Connections for extra money, and then I was just thinking they're probably doing that in anticipation that towns aren't going to be able to tidy up the ARPA funding, and it has to be used by December. And so, like, do we have a plan of how we can do we have our ARPA money basically allocated? Like, are we gonna be in a situation where we have leftover at the end that we should figure out how to allocate now? I mean, for a town purposes.
We probably should sit down and make sure that it will be allocated. I think up until now, we've looked at several different things and known that it was gonna cost an amount of money, but then we got grants. So for example, the 2 generators that are going in, we'll only have to spend a certain amount out of the ARPA fund for those. We don't have to buy both of them outright. So we could put that on an agenda in probably June or July to sit down and say, okay, here's this and this and this, and let's start getting some prices to make sure that the money's obligated. So that's a good
Right,
question.
and like if there's more that we could do on the town hall or something. Yeah.
It's allocated by December 31st, but used within 2 years after, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly, as long as
So it is a lot of,
And we're waiting on the
I'm
radios.
sure we
for
can
it.
spend it, but like,
The radios
we
are something
want
else
to think
lingering
about
too.
Right, and the reporting that I do, I think we only do it annually. There's a place in that report that asks how much of it's obligated, so it lets you kind of fill that
Good.
in ahead so that they understand that, you know, that work has been done to look at things. Just by way of information, a couple of the grants that we talked about, so there's one called Municipal Energy Resilience Program, and that is for energy efficiencies within town-owned buildings. The application for that has not come out yet, but one of the things that it sounds like we will need to do is apply for another grant that's small that will allow us to get an ADA compliance inspection. If we do that, I think we're gonna have that to have the energy and be eligible for the energy program. We will have to spend our own money to do whatever, so if we commit to the ADA compliance report, we then have to do everything that's suggested, because otherwise we become ineligible for the energy program. So that will be a place where ARPA money could certainly be used, because we know there are at least a couple of things in the town hall that need to be ADA compliant that aren't completely. I know they did some of it when they did like the bathrooms, they made sure one of those is you can turn around in the wheelchair and the switches are at the right height and things, but I know there are other issues over there. And I'm meeting with someone from the Regional Planning Commission this week about the energy program. So we're gonna kind of talk through, because the webinar that I went to said, you know what, think big. You may only be able to get one building done, but at this point, we don't really know what's gonna go to each municipality. So think about what you might do in all 3 or any buildings that you own to improve energy efficiency. So certainly we have opportunities in all 3 buildings. I mean, realistically, these windows should be done. There are things that need to be done over at the garage, certainly.
Insulation in the attic of the town garage
Yes, yeah.
would save energy over there a lot. Been up there. It's
Yeah,
And
and
it's
that's
in
something
need.
I'll mention to her as
Yeah,
well,
I
so when
would-
the applications come out, I think they'll do like site visits and they'll help prioritize. The only reason we started with the town hall is simply because it's our designated emergency shelter, and as you all know, the basement, you can see through to the outside from downstairs, so that certainly isn't saving us any oil either. So just an update on those couple of things. But yes, that was a good question, Susan. We'll put that on the agenda to kind of sit down so we all know where we're at and see if there are any any low hanging fruit that we might have missed, that where we could make sure we've allocated that money.
Budget's where we're at.
Jason, can I get to print you a copy of the budget spreadsheet we're looking at? It just gives you where we are year to date.
Sure.
And expenses and stuff, it's just good
Is that
information.
mine? Yep.
You know,
Yes.
that is supposed to be a 5, 6 at the top,
Oh.
right? I was like,
You're right.
I'm looking at the wrong one. I was like, no way, not by the total at the bottom. It's got to be right.
I thought I changed that too. Oh yeah, well I would have done it. Huh. Would have done Friday 5/5. Just double check. Or you know, I printed you the wrong one. That's entirely possible. What is page 1? What does total income say? Line 27. I don't even know why that number.
10,385. Is that what you're looking for?
Total income.
Oh, sorry, 1,055,830.
Yeah, I printed you the wrong copies. I did print you the last one that you had before. Do you want the new ones?
Please.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I thought it looked too good. I was like, the greater repairs still fit in there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I didn't.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem. I just
picked
was.
the wrong one on my
Mine
list.
doesn't, right.
Yours is right.
But it's not, because. Wait, let me see
No,
yours.
mine said 4
Oh, mine
something.
says
says
4.
Oh, yeah.
Robin
Oh,
has
mine
one that
is
says
right.
5
I was gonna say,
something.
my.
Oh, yours says
She has the
5/5.
right one, yeah.
Oh, well, lucky you.
I had the wrong one.
You know what? I printed one, and then I didn't do copies from it. I went back in my file and I picked the wrong
Oh,
one
yeah.
and the date.
So don't look at this one, because this one's no.
Yeah, because I'm looking at total income,
Here,
I'm looking
give me
down
this.
through and going, where
You
is he
make notes
coming
you
up with
wanna
that
talk about.
number? That's
Well,
not
I was
what
in the
mine
other
says.
category because I
Right.
started, like she said, started counting the lines, and then I was like, just find what it's supposed
I'm
to.
looking at grant income, okay.
Yeah, that's more of what I was thinking I was going
Thank
to say
you.
on the last page.
Thank you, Bill.
It was really good. That mud season was easy. That was really helpful.
And if you want the stapler to make that easier. You flip the right way. Here you go. Or you can put that one too. Either one. Okay. Sorry about that.
plywood materials are holding pretty good so far. So the grader total here, does that include the work does not include what, and do we have any type of a
It's gonna be a big bill.
approximate on what that,
Ballpark, put 15 to 20,000.
15 or 20, on top of the 13?
That's a ballpark
14.
number, like you said. The whole transmission is a part.
So, and that grader is, I know we go over this, it's 2001. Wow, but we have no choice right now. There's just nothing else out there to think about, okay.
And now it's gonna have brand new tires. The transmission is
Right.
gonna be rebuilt, and they've done some of the cylinders got repacked, and
The center pins a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the money can come out of the capital equipment.
I think we talked about the repairs for that are gonna have to come out of the equipment fund
I kinda like
because
those.
that's a rather large.
Mm.
But I do think it's the next piece of equipment on the radar. It's just the trucks in line are the thing that I'm thinking of is which truck is coming up next. The tandem's a 16, so that's 7 years old already.
And I know I've said this in the past, but has anybody entertained the idea instead of buying a grader, leasing graders?
There's none available. They're selling them. They'd rather sell them than lease them. Yeah, we're waiting. What did they say?
Because Ludlow leases theirs, I think.
I don't know of many towns that lease them out. Chester owns 2. They have 2.
I'd heard through the grapevine they lease theirs, but I could be wrong.
Maybe if they have a long-term lease, if they've
Yeah.
done it for a long time, but it's just such a versatile piece of equipment that's used all the time. Leasing is, I mean,
See, I've heard
That's
just
tough.
the opposite, that it's a good idea to lease them.
yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't, I
It's Cavendish leases
I
their
do
payloader
not-
too.
pardon me?
Cavendish leases their payloader too, I guess.
Yeah. So, I heard that that's not a good thing to lease because you leave it running idly all the time and you use it all the time, a loader.
Yeah, there's a lot
but
of
the,
a lot of stipulations with a lease of anything. I've never leased a piece of equipment by any means, but
Oh,
I
me
know
neither,
there's a
but-
lot of hours, and you start going over on a lease on hours or miles, which is usually the thing. You might as well own one.
Yeah.
That would be something to get Charlie's full input on. I mean, after
yeah.
it's fixed, like
Yeah.
what do you
Right,
foresee?
I mean, we've got it.
Yeah. Because even if you decided to lease or replace it, or like I said, it was 10 months to get a new loader?
Yeah.
And that was,
About that probably need a grader.
Yeah, I was talking about the grader leasing, not the loader.
yeah, no, I'm just
Yeah,
saying that
okay,
they're big
yeah.
pieces of equipment. I would think they would be in the same realm of availability, I guess. I don't know if that's what
Yeah,
my
I
thought
don't know,
process
yeah.
is on that. But I think when you mentioned it, I know Charlie said he had looked into leasing,
Yeah.
just the idea of it, and I think it's just availability.
Well,
They couldn't-
mostly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this is just something
Yeah.
I've heard, I mean, I am no expert on heavy equipment. I know it's just something somebody had said, oh, Ludlow leases theirs and they do a pretty good, it's a good,
I had heard they got a set price on one that's coming, so
oh, did they? So maybe they are out of the leasing.
$338,000.
Oh, wow.
Well, that 2001 has earned its keep then, because.
Right.
Because that 20,000 doesn't look like too much.
Well, no,
right?
that's not saying. I
Oh,
mean, when you
goodness.
start brass tacks, it's just the downtime. That's the only thing. It's just when you. Yeah, if you start looking at how much a payment on one, if that was the way a town's got to go on a $330,000 piece of equipment, a line item of $38,000 to keep it running is not
It's
going to
not
come
that,
anywhere
right.
close to the payment book on one of those.
No. How many hours that's down there either.
Yeah, correct.
I don't think it's that many really.
It's gonna get a few when it gets back. It's gonna be busy.
Next item is draft of the proposed zoning regulations. You got any suggestions?
I'll take a stab at that. So I kind of wrote down some stuff. I based on my impression from, so we've had at least 2 meetings, and then I've been to some zoning meetings too. I think our time is up for consideration. I actually think we owe it to the voters to get it on the ballot as soon as we can, although we're gonna have to have another meeting. And I was wondering, are elections expensive for the town to run? Like, so we don't have to wait to bundle it up in a November we could just have an election.
You don't have to. I think the thought process behind doing that sometimes is to encourage more voter turnout.
Yeah,
I like the idea of
Sometimes
that.
when
I
you
do
run a one-off, you might not get the kind of turnout that
you
you
don't
might be
get
hoping
the,
for.
Okay.
the large amount
Yeah.
of people that'll show up when there's
Okay.
an actual voting
And,
situation.
and is that something that people can request, like absentee ballots for if it was,
Those we can, because we will be writing those ourselves, so they will come out of here, and it will be an Australian ballot item, so yeah, absolutely.
okay, well, that was my first thing, is I think that people have had a lot of time to deliberate. I think it was really interesting, the 2 meetings, I had a very strong impression that different kind of opinions were voiced, like the first one, there seemed to, but that's, whatever, I think there's a lot of reasonable people in town and a reasonable person can disagree, and I think there's a lot of people on both sides of the issue, and, let's see, so, and then I have a question. If the town votes to have a registry, who will be administering it? Like specifically, will it be, cause my feeling, I felt like tempers were kind of running a little bit high at that last meeting that we had, and I feel like if we're gonna have a registry, it needs to be run very professionally by somebody who's not really involved in the situation, but like, do we know who would run it, who would administer it?
That's a good point.
I don't know,
There's not gonna be any money to pay somebody to do it though.
right, I mean, our
There's-
zoning administrator is a volunteer.
And if they-
Who is that?
From
Is that
reading-
Dare?
Sarah Gidley.
The star.
Okay.
From reading from other towns, they've tried to get volunteers to do it, and it seems like it's not going
And
well.
so what's the
Real-
idea of the,
Realistically, I guess I sort of assumed that at least from the, if we were going down that road, that it would start here with me, honestly.
I
It's-
think,
I don't know that there's a registry, so if there's a set of rules, to me, it's just sort of a bigger version of what I do for dog licenses, for example. You need to have this, this, and this, you bring them to the town clerk, and you pay your fee, and you're on the list, and it's maintaining a spreadsheet.
right, so
Um,
if somebody was gonna have a complaint and they weren't gonna call the state cops, but they were having a complaint, they could call her and say, I'm the neighbor of this property, who owns this property, because I am going to call them. Not Jeanette's going to call them, or some person we've hired's gonna call them, but the person who lives next to that home.
person with the complaint
The
knows
person
who to
with the
call?
complaint would know to call the town office to get the information.
I would
to
like
s-
to have that clear, that it's not,
Right,
you're not going to step in and be the middleman
No.
to.
I'm not the enforcer.
No,
But with
and
only,
no.
but with
I'm
only
just looking for the
20 to
list.
25 short-term rentals, we've already looked into a private contractor doing that, and it was thousands,
Oh, it's-
Right,
thousands
right.
of dollars. So it has to be some sort of volunteer, or it's going to land on Jeanette's shoulders.
well, but if it, but what
But there
Jeanette's,
wouldn't be, she would just give the number, the name of the people that own the place.
Right, that's all
And
she's gonna do.
Whoever has a complaint is dealing with
she'd also
it.
take the
Yeah.
check from someone who has to register.
Because even the biggest place, I mean,
Yeah.
is it Stowe that says they can't enforce it?
Right. They
And
just
they have
think
their whole
you
police
can
force,
call
so-
Stowe Management, you
I
can
say
call
it
them
needs to
and
be able to-
ask who owns that property. Because I'm gonna write them a letter, or I'm gonna call my attorney to write them a letter, or I'm
I
gonna.
don't think we should get into the
No,
enforcement. part of
what
it.
I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, you
Well,
wouldn't do
I
that.
was concerned thinking about it. I was like,
No.
like I think
it needs to be a
so.
little
I think
lighter.
at the next time that we have an informational meeting with the town, I think that needs to be clarified because I think
we having
people-
another meeting?
I think we have to if we're going to change anything. We're required to if we change anything else that since we had the last meeting,
Right.
then we do have to go
Well, I don't
for-
think having a registry would be a change, though.
No,
because
no,
that's
no, no,
already
no,
in
no,
there.
the
no.
beginning of
The
the-
conditions.
Yeah.
But also in the very beginning,
And
the
the price.
opening statement says to preserve the that all that fluff, which sounds great, but can be interpreted however someone
Yeah.
chooses to interpret it. You know, you said you're upholding my. I'm trying to find the page that it's on.
So
So I'm concerned
I've been
about
to
getting
every
rid of that.
meeting, including the zoning board, and I would like to everybody revisit the idea of taking everything that's said and move towards going back to writing an ordinance that follows the zoning recommendations, the state rules, because what I heard at that last meeting, which was from the exact same people that I've seen at every meeting, and it only equaled to 17 people, is they want action now. And I don't think they care if it's a zoning change or they just want it regulated. So we could sit here and we could draft up an ordinance and we could pass it at this table and we could move forward with short-term rentals rather than wait for an election. And at any election, it can get voted down and we're back at square one. Because 17 people, the rest of them coming, do they know what they're voting on? Because we're not getting residents involved like we've asked.
Well, yeah.
It's the
So
same
part-
people over and over again, and we've been at this table, and Chris has been at this longer than any of us has, because it was here before we were,
Yeah.
and we're going on 3
What are
years.
the states? Should we look at the state regs and just go with what the states?
That's
regs
what I'm
are?
saying. State
That's what Chester
and
did,
follow
I think.
and follow the zoning recommendations and look at those that the zoning board brought to us. The state registry for because you have to self-comply anyways, even if we change the zoning regulations.
Right. It's still
That's you have to self-comply. There's no enforcement. Nobody has a short-term rental badge, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody that owned one that came to that meeting, they said we regulate our own because we don't want anything bad happening at our house. And we have to remember, we only have 25 of them at the most. They go up and down by a few, but I heard they wanted action, and they feel like we're sitting on our hands. And I wanted to make sure that we have that option still on the table.
There's a lot to this. They've got a lot of wording.
But
in
to
this.
summarize it, and we're not changing something, because then it would, I mean, and a lot of towns are doing an ordinance. A zoning change is a big deal. It's been a long drag at this.
Well, I think the part that Robin is saying that
That's
doesn't-
fire and sewer too. The state has their own rules
Right,
on
right, right.
fire and sewer,
But-
and that's what would have to be followed anyways.
Right.
It's not.
So the short-term rentals, section 395, number 1 says purpose. The purpose of this provision is to promote and protect the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience of the town, to preserve residents' right to quiet enjoyment of homes and properties, and ensure the safety of occupants of short-term rentals. And so
That's open for anyone.
the guy brought
Yeah.
that up, like
Right.
who
It really is.
so that's a lot of language that is
It's-
just open for interpretation for people to go after.
I mean, simplifying it.
Jeanette would like to say
But yeah.
something.
I also wanna point out that in all the other categories, under conditional uses, of which the short-term rental description became one, none of the others have that kind of purpose.
Right.
So I started to wonder why it was there, and I don't know if when Jason wrote it, that language came from an ordinance template perhaps. But it's not in keeping with how the rest of the regulations for each type of thing are written.
Scrap the whole thing.
Just throwing it out.
When I was thinking about things, it occurred to me, Richard, the same thing that occurred to you. But then I basically also feel that we've kind of, well, I have said publicly that I support the town voting on it.
What if we had okay, so and I do too. I've said that as well.
I do too, but we were at town meeting. There's no way to get more voice out to the residents.
So
and
my
the
question is,
taxpayers
what if
than
we were
town meeting.
to, here, I'm gonna throw this out there, what if we were to have yet another meeting to let people voice their opinion on whether we should just do an ordinance, how they feel about that? I don't know,
Yeah, I don't
I'm really back and
I
forth.
think we're seeing it right here.
I mean, what did you just say
Jason,
a
did you
moment
come
ago?
here
Did
for
you
the
say
zoning
scrap the whole
regulations?
thing and
You're
go
the
with-
only person at the follow-up meeting.
Pardon me?
This is the follow-up meeting to
The
that.
intro. I would,
Yeah,
It's on the agenda, and we've asked people to come, and we've heard from everybody. I feel we're going to hear from.
We can't expect everybody to be involved in every
Yeah.
issue, but Jeanette.
Just one more point to think of, in terms of wanting the voters to be involved. If the select board passes an ordinance, the voters have every right to submit a petition that says 5% of us have signed this, and this has to go to a public vote. They can make you then put it to a public vote, which
Yep.
is okay, which is what you all had wanted to do.
But if
But what Richard
if
is
they're
saying
happy
is
with
we're
it,
gonna
then-
save the 3 months in between there and,
yeah,
and like you said, have it done.
have it.
Um,
The wheels are stopped. It sounds like everybody wants them to roll, and it's only more short-term rentals. We're not getting any less. I know that. I've heard from everybody they're becoming more popular, and I understand. I'm all for regulating them to a certain point.
I think we need to have
The registry,
the registry.
and pay a conditional for
I
a
mean,
permit or
If you're talking about doing an ordinance that says if you have a short-term rental, you have to register with the town. Jeanette comes up with a simple form for that, and it's going to cost you $500 a year. Period. We
which
need all your information, and
And-
also secondarily, B, you have to follow every law that Vermont lays down.
I say Vermont law, I like the idea of
Vermont
Vermont
law.
law.
yeah, follow
Getting out-
I believe it was
Right.
Scott came in and said that that's you have to self-comply, and if the fire marshal wants
Right.
in, you have to
Right.
show them, and if your egress
And-
windows
and
aren't up,
the
so
only
then-
other
So
thing-
wouldn't we take out, it has standards here, why would that even be in there? Wouldn't it be
Well,
under
I
the
think what we're
Vermont law
saying is we would
standards?
bypass most
We
of
don't-
this.
we
If we
don't-
were gonna go back
right.
to the ordinance thing, we would make it super simple. You gotta
That's my
register,
thought.
you
Yeah,
gotta pay.
that's where-
Just to simplify
Ordinance
it.
would be written a little bit differently than that,
And like Jeanette said, it can be petitioned just like any other ordinance the town has.
Right.
And the most concerned residents I've heard, they just want something. I heard that was the last comment I believe
Yeah.
at the meeting. They want
So-
something to regulate it.
The,
And
the only enforcement we're gonna have is pulling their license.
correct, pulling the
Right.
permit,
Right.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Well, and then when I look at the standards and I think, okay, so we go with Vermont, what Vermont has in effect.
which is
what they
very
put out there.
similar to that. It's
We
the
get rid of the standards, we get rid of the previous existing short-term stuff, the annual registration would have to be in
Yeah.
there. But we really simplify this, really
so
simplify it.
starts with a fee and
Right.
a registry, and it goes to your fire code, your sewer code, and I mean
Which
obviously
we don't
there'd
have
be
to make
correct.
that.
It's the
It
it
is
would
not
follow
us,
the
it
state
follows the
guidelines.
state.
Even
So-
even Killington, they've got the state's web pages up
Right.
and say you have to comply with this.
That could be on Town of Andover's
Right.
website. Yeah, the short-term
They have
rental.
their own-
My understanding is that the Chester ordinance is a stripped down, very, very simple
It
thing.
It's
That,
completely.
I mean, we could just copy that if that's what we were looking for.
well, I just pulled up the one from Peru that they just passed, and it's, very much following the template that's provided, whether it be VLCT or the Regional Planning Commission, I'm not sure which, but it is that same language. And I don't know if any of you read it, but it is, fire safety, providing for trash and waste, maximum occupancy.
But we don't even need any of that if we go with the state regs.
I think that so she's saying is that
I think
follows
that's
that.
what, that's,
They've just put that in.
Yeah.
yeah, I think.
What's their fee?
Let's see.
But I don't even think we need any of that if we have it, if we're going on state regs.
Yeah, but I
and we
think
don't
you have to
need put-
provide it. Like we'd have to, like they said,
Provide
you
a
put
link
you
to
put
it, it
the-
doesn't have to be part
Yeah,
of.
you put
is
the
what I'm
language
saying.
in your short-term rental ordinance, but it is directly from the.
Or do you just go off the state regs?
That's what I'm
what I
saying.
think Chester has.
You would
I don't think they have all this wording about the trash and all that. I don't think
You
they
just
have
put in
that.
there, they have to give you a copy of all the state.
Right. And you have to,
Yeah.
whatever the state regs are, that's what you're,
It comes in with your application form,
right.
that you have passed them all.
And with them paying the fee, it would give them, because everybody seemed to be concerned that any short-term rental was not abiding by the conditional use, and them paying a fee would be them getting their conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental in town of Andover for a set year that they paid.
So,
They're only charging $100.
That's what, and that was where we started, and that I feel with the amount we have, like it's never. The amount of short-term rentals we have, it's never going to even break us even on what it's going to
No,
take.
I think it should be $500.
I agree. It should be more, but I think that is a little. I mean, personally, I think it's a little. I don't know. But I think most people would just pay it. We
I
heard
do
that from a
too.
gentleman
The other
here.
thing is,
he
if you
said,
have a
"Whatever it
second
is,
home,
let me know."
If
And
you can
I'll-
afford to buy a second home in Vermont, then you can afford to pay the fee here in Andover.
Well, I actually did some more thinking about the fee, and I came up with an idea that I haven't heard floated by, and I don't know if it would be legal, but I'm kind of intrigued by it, that you could charge $100 a year fee if you have a room for one person. If you have two, you could charge. If you have room for 14 people, the fee could be $1,400 a
but
year.
you can't have room for 14 people unless you are,
Yeah, but that Andover Ridge house that they were talking
and
about.
do they have the septic for 14 people?
I
That's
have
the
no-
whole,
I
yeah,
have
that's
no-
the
I
capacity.
have
Also,
idea, but-
I think it's a good
Yeah,
idea if we
right.
were a bigger place.
But I do think
for
a flat
our
rate.
place,
Okay,
I think
I
it's just- yeah, no, I
because
think-
it's very simple. You're advertising for 8
It is.
people,
It is,
$800.
But I think if
I was thinking like maybe you were going to say something about the per night, that a percentage of that would
which
be.
which is going to require somebody to have a career doing
right,
it.
yes, this is true.
I think just an annual fee that's the same for,
Okay,
and that is honestly something that can be changed in the future. Being an ordinance, if it's a zoning reg, it has to.
Or if it's rented out, well, how do we, then we have to keep track of that too.
If it's rented out like what?
I was going to say by the percentage of time that it's rented out, but how do you keep track of that? You can't
that's
keep
no,
track of
that's too
That's
much.
more.
That's, you can't.
And
do
if
that.
somebody has a second home and then they decide they're not going to short-term rental it, then they just don't do their paperwork for that year.
But I am, all the other, like, previous existing, of course, we have to have annual registration, but that's a given. That would
All
go
that
in there.
though that
But
you're
all
talking
this
about,
other
it would
stuff
go
we
away
would take
because
it
it
right
would
out.
be in Vermont.
As
wouldn't be part of
optimistic
it.
as we are that the only enforcement is going to be person to person, I don't buy it in the long run. I think it is going to cost the town, if nothing else, in Jeanette's time. But I think $500 is a lot better idea than $100.
So $500 and
It's
20
still
short-term
not-
rentals would
still
bring
not
in
very much money.
10,000.
Well, it's better.
It would bring
than-
in 10,000 to what you're saying to balance what that
Well,
would
and it would
cost the
go
town.
What
toward just keeping those driveways good or those roads to get there and the trash pickup in the spring and all that kind of stuff. But really, I mean, registering is only so that a neighbor, someone living next to that house, can call the town office and find out the actual cell phone number of John Doe who owns the house so that they can call John Doe.
And then if it turns out that, but violations would have to be recorded because there's different.
Well, we wouldn't
Fines.
be
You wouldn't
doing
do
that.
that.
We're
We
not doing
wouldn't-
that, it's by the state reg.
Wouldn't
so
state
it would
regs.
be
Yeah.
their
And if the
responsi-
neighbor
yeah.
says,
So
hey,
what
they
if-
had 15 people there, then they can call and have somebody come, have the fire marshal come. You know what I mean? It would be
neighbor. It
the
wouldn't be
neighbor.
the
So
would be
they
the
would never
town's
come to a
responsibility.
confrontation point where.
No.
you- oh.
And like Chris just said, the town does have pull because all they have to do is the town can pull their
Right.
permit.
Right.
After how many offenses?
Well,
So we
that could
have
be-
that, that would be an
That would be
an
written in
important-
there.
Yes, that would be an important,
That language should definitely be in there for sure.
But you
3
can't-
strikes, you're out.
That's what
Okay,
is
simple.
actually proposed in that, I believe, is it's 3 strikes and it's not strikes, but 3 violations, and it's.
But they would have to be actual
but they would have to
violations.
be recorded by whom?
By
They'd
the
have to be
fire marshal,
Recorded by the
by-
fire marshal, by the state inspector,
Which would be an
which would be
iffy
us.
process. A lot.
But all the same,
Well,
it would be,
but it's-
it would be there.
It wouldn't be the
It wouldn't be
town's
us
responsibility
going
to
and
figure that
saying,
out.
yeah,
right?
and I don't think that we should take on that responsibility, because
I don't think
legally
we can.
that could end up being a quagmire for us to figure out how to pay for that and also how to enforce it.
Will the state show up if they're called though? They're gonna have the manpower?
Well, I mean, do we have the
Probably
manpower?
not. Yeah.
We don't have the
No,
manpower
Yeah.
either,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's
it-
kind of one of those things that if it's your,
Yeah.
Get somebody to show up to say that it's a strike.
Yeah.
I think inevitably that there's
It's a
gonna
lot
be
of
costs.
self-compliance.
There's gonna be
It's,
costs
and we've
to the
heard that. I
town.
mean, it's got to be self-complied, and the people at short-term rental in Andover, I do believe a lot of them are actually Andover residents. I've looked through the list.
Yeah, they are.
I feel like everybody's got to pay the same fee, no different for one, but the enforcement has always been on the top of the list, and it's just we've already been over the cost of any type of enforcement, and it's just not feasible.
I think before I would wanna look, I would wanna pull up the Chester regulations, cause what I
I'd like to
remember,
see
do
those.
you have them with you?
I don't, I mean, I have,
I feel like I would really wanna look at them, because I have looked at regulations from a lot of different towns, actually including Peru, which gets all complicated with their noise ordinance, but it seemed to me that the Chester one was the simplest
It is.
and the
well,
most
I think they
streamlined one.
came in with something like this and
They
then they
did.
really
I actually
brought
talked
it
with
down to.
their zoning guy. I was in there 2
But
weeks
it would
and
be
I forgot to
interesting
tell
to
you
see
this. He was gonna send that to me and I asked him how simple it was and he said, they just passed it. It's very simple.
Yeah,
It's
that's
basically
memory
show
of
us,
it.
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
Jeanette's
pretty
gonna
certain
show us.
she's gonna print that off. But even to compare, what we've unfortunately tried to compare to other towns, the article in the Chester Telegraph said that they looked at roughly 97 short-term rentals in Chester. To start, they knew they were gonna weed out a couple that actually
Is this
weren't.
Chester's?
Oh, thank you,
But-
thank you.
Compared to our 25, it's still that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's gonna have, Andover's just, it's,
I think it
Killington,
needs to be
Killington and all those
simplified,
areas, they're just so much
enforced.
bigger. I mean, it's a big difference.
I'm looking at the corner.
Yeah, Ludlow, everybody, we're not gonna turn into Ludlow, we don't have a ski mountain.
We're not.
We don't have as many houses as
People
Ludlow,
aren't
it's
gonna
just
wanna
that.
drive the roads to
Yeah.
get back and forth, they just aren't.
But-
There's a few, but
Thank you.
Oh, it's interesting, this has the purpose line.
They all do because I think that's the template that VLCT puts out, honestly. And that's where Jason came up with it. Do you want the Peru one too? They're really, actually, they're very similar.
And this, they
But
just
then you
dropped
have
in
to
the,
sign
they
that
just
one.
dropped in the Vermont regs anyway.
That's what I think, I mean,
See, and that their short-term administrator is empowered to administer and enforce this ordinance. So
Well, when you say enforce, I think they're
that's what
probably-
it says.
I know, but
that would
in-
be just calling the
that would
fire
be
marshal
calling the fire
probably, or
marshal.
the,
Well-
because there no, and I think it all this is the permit.
yeah, and
So
I
it
wouldn't
can-
do, I would take that part out.
I
because-
would, I mean,
wouldn't have that in
that's
there.
not what we just talked about.
So they have,
Yeah, I
they
wouldn't
have
say.
what I,
And I also don't like that it starts off with the purpose of it, because I'm concerned that the purpose of it.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Somebody can shift that to whatever they want.
Right, I
That-
don't like that
you
as
know?
well. I'm gonna do this just to do that for myself.
The quiet enjoyment of homes and properties to ensure safety.
Maybe somebody's idea of happiness is not quiet, I mean, I
Right,
don't know,
right,
I mean,
right.
they're welcome
Right, what if
to
you,
buy a
what if
property
you,
here
what
anyway.
if you put salsa music on Thursday nights and dance on your deck until 9:30, right? You should be able to do that, especially here in Andover because we're very rural.
Richard
It's
does
not like
that, and
we
nobody
are
says.
rural.
Huh?
course.
I know, right? Richard does that,
course.
and nobody says.
If Richard does do that, I hear him and I don't care, I like it.
so what is there?
Short-term enjoyment,
Oh, yes.
Okay. I don't-
So one thing about Chester's that I read the article when this came out is just their difference with the hosted and unhosted. It just seems simpler to have one
Right, I
one,
agree with
one
that.
fee for a short term rental, and that's
Oh, this
Thank
is
you.
per.
I think Chester's is what, 150 and 300?
150 and 300.
See, but I just like
because
five-
then you have
I-
more. Then you have
man,
more. You
Administration.
have more administration to look into. Are they actually
Right,
a
right.
person that lives there, or
And then you've got people who will
Gonna
bend
try to-
over backwards, try
to save that
prove
150.
to you that they live here.
yeah, to try to save that
I agree.
Just want you to
Yeah.
believe.
One
one
number.
flat fee whether you rent a room or a 10,000 square foot house. You're a short term rental if you short term rent your house.
Comes up to the same amount of bookkeeping down here.
Correct. I think we should take these
Short-term
and
administrator, that needs to come out because we're not going to have select board of the town.
Is there a definition for short term? Is it consecutive days or is it?
yeah.
It says, a dwelling unit rented to the transient, traveling, or vacationing public for a period of fewer than 30 consecutive days and for more than 14 days per calendar year. So if you wanted to just have a short term, if you wanted a listing on Airbnb and only took 14 days worth, you would be exempt from this.
And the
This
30
is Chester's.
and the 30 days is just for long-term
Cruises.
rentals.
Right.
So that just keeps the definition different for somebody that leases their property to rent for 12 months.
Yeah, see, because here in the section on enforcement, it says that any person who violates a provision of this ordinance shall be subject to civil penalty of up to $800 a day for each day of that violation. And then it says the SDR administrator, Chester police officers, the Chester zoning administrator, the Chester town manager shall all be designated and authorized to act as issuing municipal officials to issue and pursue complaints before the judicial
Right.
bureau.
We can't
And
have
we can't
that.
have any of that.
We can't
No,
have
that's,
that.
I mean, I
Right.
understand you can't.
Yeah.
But
I
I
say
do,
we go with
if you go
Vermont
to
regs and
section C and the number 2, that is a very good point, and that's been brought up at several meetings. The operator or manager of the short-term rental
Right, we
has
need
to
that.
be reachable
Yeah.
by phone 24 hours a day.
oh, absolutely.
So that's either
Whoever
the
is
owner or
operating
the
it
caretaker.
or the caretaker needs to
And
be.
how
able
you
to-
would prove that they were in violation, I'm not sure.
But they still have to be able to be reached to say, your property's been, a complaint's been called in about the property you either own or are looking after. So
Yeah.
that can be, because that is a thing. There are people
No,
that
there
are
has to be
starting to
24.
manage short-term rentals because they're getting very popular.
Should we take these home and
That's what I think
Yeah.
we should
Yeah,
and put on the agenda, work on the draft.
And read
If
the
that's what
Vermont
everybody-
state regs that have just come out.
So, and would a list of the short-term rentals that have a registration be, and the names of the people and their phone numbers, would that be publicly available, like as a complete document to anybody in town?
no, I wouldn't think so. You'd have to call, I think.
Okay.
I mean, maybe, except that, why would you need that?
Because
Well-
maybe
I don't know what's considered public information.
Yeah. Cause you wouldn't wanna make a list of people who felt targeted.
no, but if I
That
lived
you
in
put
a
out.
neighborhood with a lot of them, I might.
Well, and
like
if you
want
live,
to-
Well, if you
if you live
did,
there,
then
you
could
could
get on the
call.
short, yeah.
You could call and you could say, hey, I'm having a problem with.
Is this a short-term rental? I'm having a problem with, you know,
Because if you had a list of short-term rentals in your hand,
371.
Yeah, I don't
Lots of
think
dry-
that
I don't
would be
think you can
quite.
publish them.
If you have a problem with a property, even if it's not a short-term rental, I mean, it would make sense
Right,
that you
right.
have the same complaint no matter what's
Right.
Right.
what it's used for. If you're
But isn't that information public information anyways? Like can somebody call you, Jeanette, and say, hey, who owns this piece of property? Can you not give out that information? Or?
Yeah, I can, because it's in the grand list,
Right.
and that's public
That's
information.
what I thought, so.
But I think if you separate out a group of people, make a list and then make that public on the website or something, I think that's a little bit different.
I was just asking really.
Yeah, no, I
just-
mean, I feel
I'm
like,
just thinking if I felt like there were 16 houses within my doorstep, you know, that,
you
I
could call and
see,
get a
yeah.
list of 16 of them.
right, you could call and ask about the people around you.
oh, yes, I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
A lot of financial orders.
So what's our plan? Is our plan to like
Everyone's gonna take these home and read them.
And read them
maybe
and
then
edit them
edit
according
them
to
the way,
what we
yeah.
think.
Decide if we want to switch to an ordinance or whether we want to
Move forward with the
move forward with a meeting or whether we want to. We've been very adamant about bringing it to the public to vote on, so I'm struggling with that idea of not doing that. I like the idea of I don't want to call it dumbing it down because that's not what I'm trying to do.
Simplifying.
By simplifying it.
It is
having it following
it's,
the state.
It's still a long. Even if we decided tonight what to go in that zoning and it didn't get voted till November, the language right now reads you have 1 year to comply. So
Right.
you still would be 1 year plus whatever it is from now till the election or voting time. So people would still be 18 months out from somebody that doesn't want to comply. I guess I don't know if there will be somebody that doesn't. But.
I really have the confidence, this select board has been able to move forward in a unanimous fashion. And I really have the confidence that we will find our way together on this issue also, but I'm also a little skeptical that I feel like we should have at least another public hearing after we refine it, just because I know I've said so many times that I'm committed to having the
have
town
too.
vote on it. I do understand that an ordinance is a lot more flexible than a zoning change, but if you have a zoning change, it can be voted on again also. But I'm confident that we will move together and that we'll get a good result.
I think though an ordinance is just a quicker way of putting it in place. I think
It's. I don't think it's any bit more flexible.
Right.
It's
I think
just
if
a
we-
Well,
faster acting.
it could be turned over by the
But
next select
I
board.
feel that yeah, we did say we take to a vote, but I feel like every step we go forward, we're still hearing the same thing, and we've heard what. And I
Yeah.
mean,
I still
the
worry
last
about
meeting
that
I heard
whole-
that they want action. The
I
people-
heard that too, but
They didn't care what it was.
They
just
didn't
wanted
care
some-
that
something.
if it and
There could be,
moving
a-
forward
we
is
could still simplify it and put
Yeah.
it to vote.
Yeah.
yep,
We can
absolutely.
still
And there
simplify and
are-
put it to vote, and then we've checked off all the boxes that we all said we would do.
and there are other people who didn't come to the last
Right.
meeting based on feeling like they were gonna get to vote on it. But I agree, the time to move on this is
I
kind of
absolutely
past
agree.
at this point.
Yeah.
And that we do need to just
Oh, did I sign
move.
Any correspondence?
Yes, we have a letter from the state asking if you want to reappoint Gene Patagus as the town forest fire warden. His term of office expires on June 30th. So if you all are so inclined, it'd be great to have a motion and a vote and reappoint.
Does he want to do it?
Gene. As far as I know.
Okay.
I make a motion to nominate Gene Patagus as
I will
the town
second
fire
it,
warden.
All those in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Great, thank you. Now I need all your signatures on the second page. Down at the bottom.
Anywhere? Anywhere is what I thought. It looks like that's.
So this is really interesting. So based on, wait,
No,
I-
Any member of select board
Okay.
line, you can.
no,
Up
right.
here, one of those.
No, not the top one,
Not-
that's
not
Chris's.
that.
which one? Where do I go?
This is Chris's.
Here or here.
Oh,
Here.
sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
I almost signed the fire warden one.
I don't get a choice. There's only one.
I feel that people's expectations with an ordinance, according to the conversation that was had at the last meeting, was is that the administrator would be some kind of enforcer. So I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
We can't
And-
have one.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that I felt like there was the implication that whoever was the administrator would also like
If it's the
have
state
some
regs, then
power
the
to
state is the one.
speak for the town. So I think that is something that's very interesting, needs to be clarified. At least I was confused about it.
Correspondence.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.